Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the battlecruiser Terra Prime and watched the stars change color through the main view screen. Something was wrong with space itself today, and he could feel it in his bones like an old wound before rain. The communications officer turned around with fear written across her young face, and Jake knew their peaceful morning was about to end forever. "Sir, we have incoming transmissions from every deep space monitoring station at once," Lieutenant Amy Clark said with a voice that shook despite her training. "The signals are not human, and they are coming from everywhere around Earth at the same time." Jake moved to the command chair and pressed the button that would connect him to Earth defense. "Command." Admiral Lisa Carter appeared on the screen with her gray hair pulled back tight, and her eyes already showing the stress of whatever news she was about to share. Behind her, Jake could see dozens of officers running between computer stations, and the main tactical display showed red dots surrounding their blue planet, like angry wasps around a hive. "Captain Morrison, we have a situation that requires immediate attention," Admiral Carter said in the calm voice she used when everything was falling apart. "Unknown alien vessels have appeared in orbit around Earth, and they are demanding to speak with our leadership. The ship's number in the hundreds, and our sensors cannot penetrate their energy shields. To determine their weapons capabilities, the main screen switched to show the view from Luna Base, and Jake felt his stomach drop at what he saw. Massive ships hung in the darkness of space like silver monuments to some alien god, and each one was larger than the biggest space station humanity had ever built. Their surfaces seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal, and strange lights pulsed along their hulls in patterns that hurt to look at for too long. "They call themselves the Galactic Council," Admiral Carter continued as more red dots appeared on the tactical display. "Their leader wishes to address all of humanity at once, and they have given us exactly 1 hour to prepare our communication networks for a galaxy-wide broadcast." Jake watched as more alien ships materialized out of nothing around Earth's orbital defense platforms. The human weapons looked like toys compared to the massive alien vessels, and Jake realized that humanity was completely outgunned and surrounded with no way to escape or fight back. The aliens had appeared so suddenly and in such numbers that any resistance would be suicide. The hour passed quickly as Earth's governments scrambled to prepare for first contact with an alien civilization. President Maria Santos took her place in the Emergency Command Center, buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, while leaders from every nation connected through secure channels. Jake remained on the bridge of Terra Prime and waited with his crew for whatever message these aliens had come to deliver. When the transmission began, the main screen filled with the image of something that looked like a living crystal sculpture twisted into the rough shape of a person. The being's voice came through every speaker on every device connected to Earth's communication network, and its words carried the weight of absolute authority. "I am Archinveltor of the Galactic Council, and I bring judgment to the species known as humanity," the alien said with a voice like breaking glass. "Your people have violated the sacred laws that govern all civilized life in this galaxy, and your crimes cannot be ignored or forgiven." Jake felt the temperature on the bridge seem to drop several degrees as the alien continued speaking. Around him, his crew stood frozen at their stations while they listened to words that would change everything humanity thought they knew about their place in the universe. For over 50,000 years, the Galactic Council has maintained peace and order among the starfaring races through the enforcement of the preservation protocols, Archinveltor declared. "These laws prevent any species from developing technology or capabilities that could threaten the stability of galactic civilization." The alien's crystal face seemed to shift and flow as it spoke, and Jake could see something like anger or disgust in the way the light patterns moved across its surface. Behind the alien, other figures stood in shadow, and Jake realized that humanity was facing not just one alien race, but an entire alliance of different species, united against Earth. Humanity has violated these protocols through the development of adaptive artificial intelligence, quantum communication networks, and self-repairing nanotechnology. The alien continued. "Your species has achieved in mere decades what other races required millennia to accomplish, and this rapid advancement marks you as a dangerous anomaly. that threatens the natural order. Jake felt his hands clench into fists as the alien's words sank in. Humanity was being condemned not for aggression or violence, but for being too smart and advancing too quickly. The aliens saw human innovation and creativity as threats to their ancient system of control. The Galactic Council has voted unanimously on your fate, Archon Velter announced with finality. You have 72 hours to surrender all advanced technology, submit to genetic modification. That will limit your species' potential for further development, and accept relocation to designated reservation worlds where you will live under council supervision. The transmission continued, but Jake could barely hear the words over the sound of blood rushing in his ears. The aliens were demanding that humanity give up everything that made them human and accept slavery disguised as protection. The alternative they offered was simple and final. Should humanity refuse to comply with council directives, your species will be eliminated. To prevent further contamination of the galactic community, the alien concluded. Before the transmission ended and left Earth in stunned silence, Jake stared at the empty screen for a long moment before turning to his communications officer. Lieutenant Clark, send a message to all human vessels and installations. Tell them we have 72 hours to decide whether we live as slaves or die as free beings. General Rick Thompson sat in the war room 3 miles beneath the surface of Colorado and watched as screens around him lit up with reports from military installations across Earth. The alien ultimatum had been broadcast 6 hours ago, and already the planet was transforming from a peaceful world into a fortress, preparing for the fight of its life. Rick had spent 30 years planning for this exact scenario, though he had always hoped it would never come to pass. So the Prometheus defense grid is coming online ahead of schedule, reported Colonel Kate Williams as she studied the data flowing across her tablet. Our hidden satellite network has been dormant for 8 years, but all systems are responding to activation commands, and our orbital weapons platforms are beginning their deployment sequence. Rick nodded and turned his attention to the massive holographic display that dominated the center of the room. Blue dots represented human assets, while red dots showed the positions of alien vessels surrounding Earth like a closing fist. The numbers were not encouraging, but Rick had learned long ago that wars were won by determination and strategy rather than superior firepower alone. What about our civilian conversion program? Rick asked as he studied the deployment patterns of the alien fleet. How many ships can we retrofit for combat operations within the next 60 hours? Engineer Kate Williams pulled up another set of displays showing spacecraft in orbit around Earth and scattered throughout the solar system. Cargo haulers, mining vessels, research ships, and even luxury cruise liners were being rapidly converted into makeshift warships by teams of engineers working around the clock with desperate efficiency. We have over 2,000 vessels that can be armed with kinetic weapons or missile systems, Kate reported. The cargo ships can carry our heaviest ordnance, while the smaller craft will serve as fast attack vessels and electronic warfare platforms. It is not much against their fleet, but it will give us options we would not have otherwise. Commander Ben Foster appeared on one of the communication screens from Luna Base, where he was overseeing the transformation of the moon into humanity's first line of defense. Behind him, Rick could see massive construction machines installing railgun emplacements and shield generators that had been built in secret over the past decade. General Thompson, the Lunar Defense Network will be fully operational within 48 hours, Ben reported with the calm confidence that had made him Rick's first choice for commanding the moon base. Our deep drilling operations over the past 5 years were never about mining helium-3, as we told the public, but about creating a network of underground bunkers and weapon installations. Rick smiled grimly at the thought of how thoroughly humanity had prepared for this day. While politicians had spoken publicly about peaceful space exploration and international cooperation, the military had been quietly building the infrastructure needed to defend Earth against exactly this kind of threat. Every major space installation had hidden weapons. Every civilian vessel had been designed with military conversion in mind, and every soldier had been trained for combat in zero gravity. Dr. Alex Rodriguez joined the conference from his laboratory. complex where teams of scientists were working to decode the alien transmissions and find weaknesses in their technology. Alex had been studying fragments of alien materials recovered from crashed probes for over a decade, and his research was about to become the most important work in human history. General, I have analyzed the energy signatures from the alien vessels, and I believe we can adapt our shield technology to provide some protection against their weapons, Alex said as he shared his data with the war room displays. The aliens appear to use coherent energy beams similar to our experimental laser systems, but at much higher power levels. Rick studied the technical readouts and felt a spark of hope kindle in his chest. Humanity might be outgunned and outnumbered, but they were not helpless, and their enemy had made the mistake of giving them time to prepare. The aliens probably expected humanity to spend the 72 hours in panic and despair, but instead, Earth was transforming into something the galaxy had never seen before. President Maria Santos appeared on the main communication screen from her secure location, and Rick could see the steel determination in her eyes that had carried her through 2 decades of political battles. Behind her, advisors moved between computer stations, coordinating the global response to the alien threat with the efficiency of a machine built for war. General Thompson, I need an honest assessment of our chances, President Santos said without preamble. The world's leaders are looking to me for guidance, and I need to know if we have any realistic hope of victory, or if we should consider negotiating with these aliens. Rick looked around the room at the faces of officers and scientists who had dedicated their lives to protecting humanity from threats, both known and unknown. These people had spent years preparing for a war they hoped would never come. And now that the moment had arrived, they were ready to give everything they had to defend their species. Madam President, we are facing overwhelming odds and an enemy with superior technology, Rick said honestly. However, the aliens have made several tactical errors that we can exploit, and our preparations over the past decade have given us capabilities they do not expect us to possess. Rick activated the holographic display to show the alien fleet positions and human defensive preparations. The sight was both terrifying and inspiring as thousands of human vessels moved into position around Earth, while orbital weapons platforms emerged from hiding like flowers blooming in the darkness of space. The aliens expect us to surrender or fight a conventional space battle using predictable tactics, Rick continued. Instead, we are going to show them something they have never encountered before, which is a species that becomes more dangerous. When backed into a corner, Dr. Amy Clark burst into the war room with a tablet clutched in her hands and an expression of excitement mixed with fear on her face. She had been working for 18 hours straight to break the alien communication codes, and her breakthrough had just changed everything about humanity's situation. General, I have intercepted communications between the alien vessels, Amy announced breathlessly. They are not as unified as they want us to believe, and some of their member species are expressing doubts about the attack on Earth. Rick felt his pulse quicken as Amy shared her intelligence data with the room displays. The alien fleet consisted of ships from at least 6 different species, and their internal communications showed signs of disagreement about the best way to handle the human problem. Some aliens wanted to proceed with immediate extermination, while others preferred to wait and see if humanity would surrender. This changes our tactical situation significantly, Rick said as he studied the alien communication patterns. If we can drive a wedge between their different factions, we might be able to turn this war from a fight for survival into something much more interesting. The countdown timer on the main display showed 58 hours and 37 minutes until the alien deadline expired. Rick looked around the room at the people who would determine whether humanity lived or died in the coming battle, and felt a fierce pride in his species well up in his chest. Ladies and gentlemen, we have less than 60 hours to prepare for the most important battle in human history, Rick announced to the room. When this is over, the galaxy will know that humanity cannot be conquered, enslaved, or destroyed, and they will remember the day Earth defied the Galactic Council. The 72-hour deadline expired at exactly 0800 Greenwich Mean Time on a Tuesday morning. That would be remembered as the day humanity refused to kneel. Captain Jake Morrison watched from the bridge of Terra Prime as the alien fleet began moving into attack formation with the cold precision of machines designed for extermination. The first energy beams lanced down from orbit like spears of pure light, aimed at every major city on Earth, and Jake felt his heart stop as he waited to see if their defenses would hold. The planetary shield network activated just seconds before the alien weapons struck, and columns of brilliant energy crashed against barriers of crackling force that surrounded population centers like protective domes. Most of the alien attacks were deflected harmlessly into space, but several beams punched through weak points in the shield matrix and carved burning scars across the landscape below. "Shields are holding at 70% capacity," reported Lieutenant Amy Clark from her station while data streamed across her displays, faster than human eyes could follow. "We have lost coverage over 3 metropolitan areas, but the backup generators are coming online and should restore full protection within minutes." Admiral Lisa Carter appeared on the main communication screen from Earth Defense Command, where she was coordinating humanity's response to the alien assault. Behind her, officers worked frantically at computer terminals, while tactical displays showed the positions of every human and alien vessel in near-Earth space. "All units, this is Admiral Carter, and the battle for Earth begins now," she announced over the Fleet Communication Network. "Execute Operation Defiance and show these aliens what happens when they threaten human freedom." Jake activated the combat systems of Terra Prime and felt the massive battlecruiser come alive around him like a sleeping giant awakening to face an ancient enemy. The ship had been built in secret over the past 8 years using technology reverse engineered from alien artifacts and hidden from public view by a conspiracy of governments that knew this day would eventually come. "Captain Morrison, you are cleared for assault Vector Alpha 7, came the voice of Admiral Carter over the tactical channel. "Your target is the alien command vessel in high orbit above the North Atlantic, and you are authorized to use any means necessary to neutralize their leadership." Jake ordered his helmsman to engage the experimental fusion drive, and Terra Prime accelerated toward the alien fleet, with a dozen converted civilian vessels following in tight formation. The makeshift human fleet looked pitiful compared to the massive alien dreadnoughts, but Jake had learned during his years in the military that appearance meant nothing. When survival was at stake, the aliens opened fire as soon as the human ships came within range, and space filled with energy beams that could slice through solid steel like a hot knife through butter. Jake watched two converted cargo haulers explode in balls of superheated plasma, but their sacrifice bought time for the remaining human vessels to reach attack range. "All ships concentrate fire on the crystalline vessel at coordinates 77 Mark IV. Jake commanded over the battle network. "That appears to be their flagship, and eliminating their command structure might disrupt their coordination." Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Mitchell led the first human boarding action in the history of space warfare as her Marines launched from Terra Prime in heavily armored assault shuttles. The aliens had never faced borders before, since their wars were fought at vast distances with energy weapons, and they were completely unprepared for humans armed with kinetic weapons and explosive charges. Sarah's Marines blasted through the hull of an alien cruiser and found themselves in corridors filled with crystalline beings that looked like living sculptures carved from precious gems. The aliens were beautiful and terrifying at the same time, but they shattered like glass when hit by human bullets, and their exotic technology failed when confronted by simple explosives. Commander Ben Foster coordinated the defense of Luna Base as waves of alien fighters swept toward the moon with the intent of eliminating humanity's forward observation post. The lunar surface erupted with railgun fire as hidden weapon emplacements emerged from concealed positions and filled space with streams of metal projectiles moving at incredible velocity. "Luna Base, to all human forces, we are under heavy attack, but holding our position," Ben reported over the communication network, while explosions lit up the lunar landscape around his command bunker. "The aliens are learning that fighting humans on our own territory is very different from their previous colonial campaigns." Dr. Alex Rodriguez activated the adaptation protocol from his laboratory complex and watched as humanity's artificial intelligence networks began analyzing alien tactics in real time. The AI systems learned from every enemy attack and developed countermeasures faster than any organic mind could comprehend. While human computers evolved new strategies with each passing minute, the battle raged across the solar system as human vessels engaged alien ships in desperate combat, while Earth's population watched from underground shelters and protected cities. News reports showed human fighters dodging between massive alien dreadnoughts, like insects harassing giants, while orbital weapons platforms hammered enemy vessels. With everything from nuclear missiles to experimental particle beams, Jake felt Terra Prime shudder as an alien energy beam punched through their forward shields and carved a burning trench along the hull. Damage reports flooded in from all sections of the ship, but the crew kept fighting with the desperate courage of people who knew they were standing between their families and extinction. "Captain, we have lost main power to the forward weapons," Ray reported Chief Engineer Tony Baker over the internal communication system. "I can restore firing capability, but I need 5 minutes to reroute power." From the life support systems, Jake made the decision that would define his legacy and ordered the power transfer, even though it meant his crew would be breathing recycled air. For the rest of the battle, the forward railgun came back online just in time to target the alien flagship as it prepared to fire its main weapon at the lunar colonies. The railgun projectile struck the alien command vessel at 17,000 miles per hour and punched completely through its crystalline hull in a shower of shattered fragments that sparkled like diamonds in the sunlight. The massive alien ship began tumbling out of control, while atmosphere vented from dozens of hull breaches, and its elegant curves collapsed into twisted wreckage. Sarah's Marines fought their way to the bridge of the alien cruiser they had boarded, and found themselves face to face with creatures that looked like they had stepped out of a fever dream. The alien officers were tall and graceful with skin that seemed to be made of living crystal, but they died just as easily as any other enemy. When confronted by human determination, the tide of battle began to turn as more alien vessels fell to human tactics that defied every rule of civilized warfare. The aliens had expected formal space combat with predictable maneuvers, an exchange of fire at long range, but instead they found themselves fighting an enemy that used ramming attacks, boarding actions, and suicide runs to achieve victory against impossible odds. Commander Foster's final transmission from Luna Base became legendary among human forces, as his facility was overrun by alien ground troops. "Luna Base to Earth Command, message ends. We showed them how humans die, and now they know how we fight," he said before the communication channel went silent forever. By the end of the first day of combat, humanity had lost 60% of their space fleet, but had destroyed or disabled nearly a third of the alien invasion force. More importantly, they had shattered the myth of alien invincibility and proven that humans could stand against the galaxy's most powerful military alliance. Jake stood on the damaged bridge of Terra Prime and looked out at the wreckage scattered across near-Earth space while rescue shuttles searched for survivors among the debris. The battle was far from over, but humanity had survived the first test and shown the galaxy that Earth would not surrender without a fight that would be remembered for 1,000 years. 3 weeks into the war that was supposed to last only hours, Admiral Lisa Carter stood in the rebuilt command center of Earth Defense Command and studied tactical displays that showed a situation the Galactic Council had never encountered before. Humanity had not only survived the initial alien assault, but was actually pushing the invaders back from Earth's orbital space while launching counterattacks that reached deep into enemy territory. The asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter had become humanity's greatest weapon, as converted mining ships used mass drivers to hurl chunks of rock at alien vessels with devastating effect. Captain Jenny Parker commanded a strike force of 12 converted cargo haulers that had been hitting Korth supply convoys for the past week, and her tactics were proving that human creativity could overcome superior alien technology. "Admiral Carter, we have intercepted communications from the Korth Collective, indicating their biomechanical vessels are having difficulty adapting to our unconventional attack patterns," reported Dr. Amy Clark from her intelligence station. "Their living ships require time to evolve new defenses, but we are changing our tactics faster than they can compensate." Lisa smiled grimly as she watched Jenny's strike force emerge from the shadow of a large asteroid and launch a coordinated attack on a Korth supply convoy. The alien vessels looked like giant insects crossed with spacecraft, and their organic hulls pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that indicated stress and confusion. As human missiles found gaps in their adaptive armor, the war had transformed from a simple invasion into something much more complex. As alien member species began questioning their leadership and their commitment to the Council's cause, intelligence intercepts showed growing dissent within the alien alliance as casualties mounted, and human resistance proved far more effective than anyone had predicted. Commander Tony Baker reported from Mars Colony, where his engineers had transformed mining equipment into improvised weapons systems that turned the Red Planet into a fortress. Bristling with railguns and missile launchers, the Martian population had been evacuated to underground shelters, but the automated defense network was holding off alien attempts to establish a forward base. Earth Command, this is Mars Defense reporting successful repulsion of the fourth alien landing attempt, Tony announced over the secure communication channel. Our atmospheric processors have been converted into area denial weapons, and the enemy ground forces cannot maintain their equipment in the modified atmosphere. We are generating. Lisa felt a surge of pride as she listened to reports from human forces throughout the solar system who were proving that desperation and ingenuity could overcome seemingly impossible odds. The aliens had expected to face a primitive species that would collapse under the first serious attack, but instead they found themselves fighting an enemy that became more dangerous. With each passing day, Dr. Alex Rodriguez appeared on the main communication screen from his research facility, where teams of scientists were working around the clock to develop new weapons and defensive systems based on captured alien technology. Behind him, Lisa could see technicians assembling devices that looked like they belonged in a science fiction movie rather than a real laboratory. Admiral, we have achieved a breakthrough in our analysis of alien communication protocols, Alex announced. With barely controlled excitement, I have established contact with a faction within the Nexus Syndicate that appears to be questioning the Council's decision to attack humanity. Lisa felt her pulse quicken at this unexpected development, since any crack in the alien alliance could be exploited to humanity's advantage. The Nexus Syndicate was reportedly composed of artificial intelligences that had achieved consciousness millions of years ago, and their technology was among the most advanced in the galaxy. The communication came through as a series of mathematical equations that gradually resolved into recognizable language patterns. As the alien AI learned to translate its thoughts into concepts humans could understand, the entity identified itself as Logic Prime 7 and expressed what could only be described as curiosity about humanity's symbiotic relationship with their artificial intelligence systems. I find your species fascinating in ways the Council does not comprehend. The alien AI transmitted through quantum encrypted channels that bypass normal spacetime limitations. You have created artificial minds as partners rather than servants, and this represents an evolutionary path my own kind abandoned long ago. President Maria Santos joined the conference from her secure command bunker, where she had been coordinating humanity's diplomatic efforts with potential alien allies. The discovery that some Council member species were having second thoughts about the war opened possibilities that had not existed when the invasion began. Logic Prime 7, we appreciate your interest in our civilization, but we need more than curiosity if we are going to survive this conflict, President Santos said with the direct honesty that had made her a respected leader. Can you provide intelligence about Council military capabilities or strategic weaknesses? We can exploit. The alien AI paused for several seconds before responding, and Lisa realized they were witnessing the first real negotiation between humanity and a member of the Galactic Council. The outcome of this conversation could determine whether Earth faced the full might of the alien alliance or whether cracks in their unity could be exploited. The Council has ruled through fear and intimidation for 50,000 years, but your species represents something they cannot control or predict, Logic Prime 7 explained. Several member species are beginning to question whether the invasion of Earth serves their interests or merely preserves the Council's monopoly on power. Captain Jake Morrison reported from the rebuilt Terra Prime, where his crew was preparing for humanity's most ambitious operation yet. Intelligence from Logic Prime 7 had revealed the location of a major Council command facility in the Proxima system, and Jake's ship was leading a strike force to attack the installation. "Admiral Carter, we are ready to begin Operation Starbreak," Jake announced from his command chair, while the rebuilt battlecruiser prepared to engage its experimental faster-than-light drive. "If we can eliminate their central command structure, the Council member species might lose coordination long enough for us to negotiate a ceasefire." Lisa authorized the mission, despite knowing it would strip Earth's defenses down to almost nothing. While their best ships were deployed across interstellar distances, the risk was enormous, but the potential payoff justified the gamble, since destroying the Council's command center might end the war before humanity was completely overwhelmed. The strike force consisted of Terra Prime and 8 converted civilian vessels crewed by volunteers who understood they might not return from their mission. Jake's fleet engaged their experimental drives and disappeared from normal spacetime in flashes of blue light that briefly outshone the sun itself. General Rick Thompson coordinated Earth's defenses during the absence of their primary fleet while alien reinforcements continued arriving in the solar system. The enemy was bringing forward reserves from across the galaxy, but human resistance was inspiring other oppressed species to begin their own rebellions against Council authority. "Admiral, we are receiving communication attempts from at least 6 different species that claim to have been subjugated by the Council," Rick reported from the underground command center. "They are requesting permission to coordinate their resistance efforts with our own military operations." Lisa realized they were witnessing the beginning of something that went far beyond Earth's survival, as the human example inspired other species to throw off the chains of Council oppression. The war was transforming from an invasion into a galaxy-wide revolution, with humanity serving as the catalyst that would change everything. The tactical displays showed alien reinforcements massing for what appeared to be a final assault on Earth while Jake's strike force raced toward their target. In the Proxima system, Lisa knew the next few hours would determine whether humanity emerged as leaders of a new galactic order or whether Earth became a memorial to the species that dared to defy the most powerful empire in the galaxy. Dr. Rodriguez activated the final phase of the adaptation protocol and watched as human artificial intelligence systems began networking with their alien counterpart Logic Prime 7 to share tactical data and strategic analysis. The collaboration between human and alien minds was creating possibilities that neither species could have achieved alone. The 4th month of the war brought developments that no one could have predicted. When the first alien ships appeared in Earth's orbit, Logic Prime 7 had become humanity's most valuable ally. And through the artificial intelligence's quantum communication network, Dr. Alex Rodriguez was learning about species and civilizations that had been suppressed by the Galactic Council for thousands of years. "The galaxy is not what the Council wants you to believe," Logic Prime 7 explained during one of their encrypted communication sessions while data flowed between human and alien computer systems at the speed of thought. "Hundreds of species have been forced to abandon their natural evolutionary paths in the name of stability and peace, but what they call order we recognize as stagnation." Admiral Lisa Carter studied intelligence reports that painted a picture of galactic civilization far different from what humanity had imagined during their years of dreaming about first contact. The Council controlled over 3,000 star systems, but their rule was maintained through fear and the systematic suppression of any species that showed signs of rapid technological or cultural advancement. The Delian species had once been masters of the ocean worlds scattered throughout the galaxy's spiral arms, but Council intervention had forced them to abandon their aquatic homelands and accept confinement to artificial habitats. Captain Jenny Parker's strike force had made contact with Delian rebels hiding in the outer system, and their knowledge of underwater warfare was proving invaluable against Korth biomechanical vessels. "Admiral Carter, we have established communication with Commander Reef Singer of the Free Delian Fleet," Jenny reported from her flagship, while her converted cargo haulers prepared for another raid on Council supply lines. The Delians have been fighting a guerrilla war against the Council for over 2 centuries, and they are willing to coordinate their operations with our own. Lisa felt hope kindle in her chest as reports came in from across the galaxy about species rising up against Council authority. The other people had been grounded and contained after their winged ancestors, were deemed too unpredictable for Council society, but now their hidden fleets were emerging from gas giant atmospheres to strike at alien installations. President Maria Santos addressed the growing alliance of rebel species from her command center, while diplomats worked to establish formal relationships with civilizations that had been enemies. Just months before, the war against Earth had inadvertently sparked the largest rebellion in galactic history as oppressed peoples found courage in humanity's example. To all free peoples of the galaxy we extend our friendship and support in the struggle against tyranny, President Santos declared during a broadcast that reached every corner of known space through Logic Prime's Evans communication network. Humanity did not seek this war, but we will see it through to its conclusion, and we will not rest until every species is free to determine its own destiny. Captain Jake Morrison returned from the Proxima system aboard the heavily damaged Terra Prime with news that would change everything about humanity's strategic situation. Operation Starbreak had succeeded beyond their wildest hopes, and the destruction of the Council's Central Command facility had created chaos throughout the alien alliance. The Council's command structure has completely collapsed, Jake reported to the assembled Earth leadership while medical teams treated his wounded crew. Their member species are receiving contradictory orders from different faction leaders, and several worlds have declared independence from Council authority. The success at Proxima had come at a terrible cost as humanity lost half of their remaining space fleet during the attack on the heavily defended command station. However, the strategic victory was worth the sacrifice, since the Council could no longer coordinate their vast military forces effectively, and cracks were appearing in their ancient alliance. Logic Prime 7 provided real-time intelligence about the growing chaos within Council territory as their member species began questioning orders and demanding explanations for the costly war against a primitive species that should have been defeated within days. The artificial intelligence seemed almost amused by the situation, as it reported on emergency council sessions that devolved into arguments and accusations. The Zephyrian Empire is experiencing internal revolt as their crystalline population questions the wisdom of their leadership, Logic Prime 7 transmitted. During one of their regular briefings, 3 Korth hive worlds have declared neutrality in the conflict, and the Nexus Syndicate is fragmenting into competing factions that cannot agree on basic policy. General Rick Thompson coordinated with rebel forces throughout the galaxy as the war transformed from Earth's desperate fight for survival into a comprehensive campaign to overthrow the Council's totalitarian rule. Human military advisors were being sent to dozens of worlds to share tactical knowledge and organizational expertise with species that had forgotten how to fight for freedom. Dr. Amy Clark worked with Logic Prime 7 to establish a secure communication network that connected rebel forces across the galaxy while staying hidden from Council surveillance systems. The network used quantum encryption and faster-than-light relay nodes to coordinate resistance activities on a scale that had never been attempted before. Commander Tony Baker led the reconstruction of Mars Colony while his engineers developed new weapons systems based on technology shared by their alien allies. The Red Planet was becoming a major production center for the rebellion, as human manufacturing techniques were adapted to produce equipment suitable for species with very different physiological requirements. The tide of war had turned completely, as Council forces found themselves fighting on multiple fronts against enemies they had thought pacified centuries ago. Earth was no longer under threat of invasion, but had become the center of a galactic revolution that threatened to topple the oldest government in known history. Admiral Carter coordinated the largest fleet action in human history as ships from a dozen different species assembled in the outer solar system for a joint assault on the Council's remaining strongholds. The sight of human vessels flying alongside Delian bioships, other energy constructs, and Nexus mechanical platforms was both inspiring and terrifying. All allied forces. This is Admiral Carter assuming overall command of Operation Liberation. she announced over the multi-species communication network. "Today we begin the final phase of our campaign to free the galaxy. From 5,000 years of oppression and stagnation, the alien response was swift and desperate. As Council loyalist forces began falling back toward their core worlds while their political leadership tried to negotiate ceasefire agreements with individual rebel species. However, Logic Prime's Evan had convinced most of the resistance movements that partial freedom was no freedom at all, and the only acceptable outcome was complete victory. President Santos received surrender offers from several Council member species, but rejected them all after consulting with her alien allies, who had suffered under Council rule for millennia. The human leader understood that this war had grown far beyond Earth's survival, and now represented the best chance in galactic history to create a truly free civilization. The Galactic Council has ruled through fear and division for far too long, President Santos declared during her response to the Council's diplomatic overtures. "We will accept nothing less than the complete dissolution of their government and the establishment of a new galactic order based on freedom and cooperation, rather than oppression and control." Dr. Rodriguez worked with scientists from dozens of species to develop technologies that had been forbidden under Council law for thousands of years. The sharing of knowledge and techniques was accelerating technological advancement throughout the galaxy at a rate that would have terrified the Council's leadership if they had still been in control. Logic Prime 7 provided strategic analysis that showed the Council's remaining forces were concentrated around their original homeworlds, while their outer territories had either joined the rebellion or declared independence. The ancient government that had ruled the galaxy for 50,000 years was crumbling, and nothing could stop its final collapse. The final battle for the galaxy took place not in space, but in the Great Assembly Chamber of the former Council homeworld, where Admiral Lisa Carter accepted the surrender of the last loyalist forces. The ancient crystalline halls that had once echoed with declarations of absolute authority now hosted delegates from over 100 species who had gathered to forge a new future for galactic civilization. Archon Velter stood before the assembled representatives with his crystal form dulled and cracked from months of warfare and political collapse. The being who had once delivered humanity's death sentence now faced the reality that his ancient government had been destroyed by the very species they had tried to eliminate. The Galactic Council formally surrenders all authority and dissolves itself as of this moment, Velter declared in a voice that carried none of its former arrogance. "We acknowledge that our rule has ended, and that the future of the galaxy now rests with those who fought for freedom, rather than those who sought to preserve control." President Maria Santos rose from her seat among the human delegation and addressed the chamber with words that would be remembered for as long as intelligent life existed in the galaxy. Her voice carried across the vast hall through translation systems that converted her meaning into forms that hundreds of different species could understand. "We gather today not as conquerors and conquered, but as equals, who have learned that diversity and freedom are the galaxy's greatest strengths," President Santos announced while delegates from worlds that had been enemies just months before listened with respect. "The age of enforced conformity is over, and the era of cooperation and mutual advancement begins." Now Captain Jake Morrison commanded the new vessel Harmony as it orbited the former Council homeworld with a crew composed of humans and representatives from dozens of allied species. The ship had been built using technology shared freely between civilizations and represented everything the old Council had feared about unrestricted cooperation and innovation. "Captain Morrison, we are receiving communication requests from the outer territories," reported Lieutenant Amy Clark from her station, while data flowed across displays showing the positions of ships from across the galaxy. Former Council worlds are requesting membership in the new Galactic Alliance and asking for assistance in establishing democratic governments. Jake felt a sense of wonder as he watched history being made in the chamber below, while his mixed species crew worked together with an efficiency that would have been impossible under the old system. Human adaptability combined with alien knowledge and technology was creating possibilities that no single species could have achieved alone. Dr. Alex Rodriguez led the new galactic scientific collective as knowledge and technology that had been suppressed for millennia, was finally shared openly between civilizations. The artificial intelligence restrictions that had prevented species from developing true machine consciousness were lifted, and AI entities like Logic Prime 7 began teaching organic minds about concepts that had been forbidden under council law. The galaxy is experiencing a renaissance of innovation and discovery that will transform every aspect of civilization within decades, Alex announced during his address to the Scientific Assembly. We are sharing technologies and knowledge that the Council spent thousands of years keeping separate, and the results are exceeding our most optimistic projections, Commander Tony Baker supervised the construction of New Geneva on Earth, where representatives from hundreds of worlds would work together to govern the new Galactic Alliance. The city was being built using architectural techniques from dozens of different species and would serve as both a symbol of cooperation and a practical demonstration of what diverse civilizations could accomplish together. The former Council territories were being transformed as species that had been forced into stagnation for millennia began developing their natural abilities without restriction. The Delians returned to their ocean worlds and began creating underwater cities that exceeded anything they had built before their subjugation, while the other people took to the skies with new flight technologies that made their ancestors' achievements look primitive. General Rick Thompson established the new Galactic Defense Force as a cooperative military organization designed to protect member worlds from external threats while respecting their sovereignty and independence. The force was structured as a voluntary association rather than a centralized command system, and every species contributed according to their abilities rather than their political status. Logic Prime 7 became the first artificial intelligence to serve as an ambassador between organic and synthetic consciousness, as AI entities throughout the galaxy began communicating freely for the first time in millions of years. The artificial minds shared knowledge and perspectives that organic species had never considered, while learning to work as partners rather than servants or masters. President Santos signed the Galactic Charter in a ceremony broadcast to every inhabited world in known space, while children from dozens of species played together in the gardens outside the assembly chamber. The document established principles of freedom, cooperation, and mutual respect that would govern interspecies relations for generations to come. Today we replace the rule of fear with the governance of hope, President Santos declared, as she added her signature to the charter alongside representatives from civilizations that span the galaxy. No species will be forced to abandon their nature or suppress their potential, and all will be free to develop according to their own path, while contributing to the greater good of galactic civilization. Admiral Carter assumed command of the first truly integrated fleet in galactic history, as ships from hundreds of worlds began joint patrols to protect trade routes and defend against any remaining Council loyalists. The sight of human vessels flying alongside former enemies had become commonplace, but it never lost its power to inspire those who remembered the dark days of the invasion. The war crimes tribunals began their work as former Council leaders were held accountable for thousands of years of oppression and genocide. However, President Santos insisted that justice be tempered with mercy, and many former Council officials were allowed to serve their sentences through community service rather than imprisonment. Earth had become the unofficial capital of the new galactic order, but President Santos made it clear that no single world would dominate the alliance. The governmental structure was designed to rotate leadership positions between different species and regions to ensure that power remained distributed rather than concentrated. Dr. Amy Clark established the Galactic Communication Network that connected every member world through quantum encrypted channels that made censorship and information control impossible. The free flow of ideas and knowledge was considered essential to preventing the rise of another authoritarian government. The children born after the war grew up in a galaxy where cooperation between species was normal rather than extraordinary, and where artificial intelligence was considered a partner in the development of civilization. Human children played with young aliens in schools throughout the galaxy, while their parents worked together on projects that would have been unimaginable under Council rule. Captain Morrison stood on the observation deck of the Harmony and watched, Earth turning slowly in space while ships from across the galaxy came and went from the orbital stations that had once been defensive platforms. The blue world that had defied the greatest empire in galactic history was now the heart of a civilization based on freedom rather than fear. The transformation was not complete and would take generations to fully achieve, but the foundation had been laid for a galaxy where every species could develop according to their nature, while contributing to the greater good of all. Humanity had not just survived first contact, but had used it to free an entire galaxy from tyranny and oppression.